Does Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles still have some big moves in store as we look ahead to training camp? That's what we're talking about on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for joining us. And Philadelphia right now, the purpose of this conversation, has $27.2 million in cap space. So will Howie cook something up? We're going to go through those possibilities here just in a few minutes, but first, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because if you want thought-provoking and informative Eagles coverage that comes your way on this YouTube channel every single day, this is the go-to spot. So hit that sub button and lock us in right now. Let's begin by taking a look at all of the teams with the most cap space in the National Football League. You have the New England Patriots up atop the list at $50.5 million. Number 2, Washington Commanders, $43.4 million. The Jaguars, third most cap space in the NFL with a little north of $34 million. The Cardinals, $28.5, Chargers, $27.9, and the Eagles rounding out that list with north of $27 million. And this is really where Howie Roseman's genius is on display, because the Eagles were very active in NFL free agency. They spent a lot of money. And of course, this is a credit to owner Jeffrey Lurie for allowing Howie Roseman to spend to improve the football team and to be aggressive in trying to chase that vaunted second Lombardi trophy. And in the NFL draft, you saw it once again. Philadelphia was very active. They were very aggressive. On top of that, the Eagles have also signed multiple players to contract extensions this offseason. They're also a good team. And you look at some of the teams on the list of the most cap space in the NFL, they are not playoff contenders. The Eagles are, and they're not only playoff contenders, but Super Bowl contenders, and they still have north of $27 million. Now, the question, of course, becomes, and this is the pertinent question that we're trying to answer on the show as we try to read the tea leaves and connect the dots, what could the moves be for the Eagles to improve this roster going into training camp and, of course, going into the 2024 season? The Eagles have really taken care of their homegrown players. I don't think that some of that money is going to be allocated to a contract extension for a player who's seeking a new deal, because Landon Dickerson got the bag. Jordan Mailata got a contract extension. Devontae Smith got his deal done. And the Eagles didn't have to pay A.J. Brown, but they extended him and gave him the richest contract in the history of football on an average annual value basis. So there's nobody else pressing that I can really think of who is looking for and is worthy of a contract extension. But on this roster, is there a player that the Eagles could get rid of? Could Philadelphia just say, you know what, F it. We drafted Quinion Mitchell in the first round. We took Cooper DeJean in the second round. We're actually pretty deep now at the cornerback spot. You combine our draftees with some of the other young players on this team in Akili Ringo and in Eli Ricks. Darius Slay is still playing at a really solid level. You have Isaiah Rodgers coming back off the suspension. The point here being is that the Eagles are in a good spot at the cornerback position. Could they just release James Bradberry, eat that money, and they feel as though, okay, our roster is in a good position here at the cornerback position where we can afford to get rid of a veteran who his career trajectory up to this point has been good year, bad year, good year, bad year for James Bradberry. Could he rebound? He could. Could you try to trade him? That's another possibility as well. You look at that Eagles cornerback depth chart, and I truly believe that going into training camp, Philadelphia is going to give Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean every opportunity to be a starter on this team. Quinion Mitchell compared his game to Darius Slay, 4.3 speed, good ball skills, 24 pass breakups last year. He's a pass breakup machine and has toughness, has swagger, has good range, likes to be coached hard. He's a pro-ready prospect to me, even though he played his college football at Toledo. And then Cooper DeJean is a player, he's way too athletic to not have him on the field. And you can find ways to have him as part of your defensive arsenal in a multitude of ways to impact the game. And best case scenario, they're able to take those jobs. Quinny Mitchell on the outside and then Cooper DeJean in the slot. But look at the depth here at the cornerback position for the Eagles. Kelee Ringo, Eli Ricks, Mario Goodrich, Sean Stevens they just signed, Avonte Maddox, Tyler Hall, Zech McPherson in the slot. Then on the other outside portion, James Bradberry, Isaiah Rodgers, Josh Jobe. So you can afford to get rid of a James Bradberry here, and you have the money to be able to eat that salary. Another move in free agency that we've talked about aplenty here on Philadelphia Eagles now would be signing the 3-time All-Pro safety, or is it a 4-time All-Pro safety, Justin Simmons, who since coming into the league in 2016 has led the NFL in interceptions. The point here being when you're named to that many All-Pros, you're a really solid player. He is still a solid player despite him being on the wrong side of 30. He played under Vic Fangio. He's a team captain. He's a ball hawk, and he fulfills a need for the Eagles. Why a move like that would make sense is that you have the money, and you have the money to potentially overpay him if he has other suitors in free agency. He fulfills a need because right now you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship as your designated starters at the safety spot. Sidney Brown is an up-and-comer who I like because he can bring the thump. But you put Justin Simmons into the equation, and you have Justin Simmons, C.J. Gardner-Johnson as your 2 starting safeties on that back end. You go from that position group being a little bit of a question mark to being a really good strength, because then you have Reed Blankenship as a backup, Sidney Brown as a backup, and Cooper DeJean as a player who can also play safety and be that Swiss Army knife. The thing with Justin Simmons, too, he's older, but that's fine because you have a win-now team with the way that you have constructed this roster. And then lastly, let's talk about some trade candidates here for Philadelphia. A couple that come to mind immediately, and these are of the superstar or at the very least Pro Bowl caliber variety. Trey Hendrickson, Patrick Surtain, Budda Baker, and Greg Newsome. Yes, I know. The Philadelphia Eagles did trade away a 30-year-old edge rusher. But was that because Hassan Reddick was chasing sacks? Reddick and Hendrickson, very expensive, about the same age. They've both been productive. But there was some chatter coming out of that Eagles locker room that a lot of players and the coaching staff, they were frustrated with Reddick specifically chasing sacks. And then there was some chatter and some speculation about him not completely buying into what Vic Fangio wanted to do, because Vic Fangio does ask his edge rushers to drop back in coverage. That is not a strong suit of Hassan Reddick. Now, it's not a strong suit of Trey Hendrickson, but you don't have to worry about maybe the drama of him chasing sacks, and you're a little bit thin at the pass rusher spot as far as generating a consistent pass rush on the opposing quarterback. I think it's unlikely that Trey Hendrickson would be the guy, but those are some thoughts that come to mind when I think about that potential move. With Patrick Surtain, do the Broncos want to rebuild and pay massive dollars to a cornerback when they have a lot of other needs on the team? Or would they rather trade that corner away, get some good draft compensation, which helps streamline your rebuild? The latter of those scenarios, to me, if I'm running a football organization, makes a little bit more sense. And then the Cardinals, in a similar situation to the Denver Broncos, I actually think their stock is a little bit higher than Denver. With Denver, a lot of it hinges on Bo Nix, who I thought was a reach in the first round of the draft for Denver at number 11 as they moved up. Do the Cardinals want to recoup assets for Budda Baker on an expiring deal? They did a good job in the draft, I thought, of getting players at good value who could end up being impact players. Last year, they fought hard. Shoot, they beat the Eagles at our crib at Lincoln Financial Field with the team that played hard, was hungry, was feisty, was tough. And Budda Baker, older safety. Last year, he was injured. Do they try to get some draft assets back for Budda Baker instead of letting him walk and then get nothing back for him? Budda Baker, like Justin Simmons, fills that need for a safety on the back end who makes your defense better and your football team better. And then there's Greg Newsome, who's been a solid corner who's been up and down so far in his career. Last year with Jim Schwartz after a down 2022, ended up having a really good year and has been that Pro Bowl type of corner, and he's been involved in some trade discussions for the Cleveland Browns too. Chase, they're deep at corner, I know, but Greg Newsome, solid player if you can get him at a good asking price. Patrick Surtain, you don't have players on the roster who are like a Patrick Surtain, and not going to put Greg Newsome in that category, but again, he moves the needle for your football club. Here's the point and the overarching point of today's show. Never count out Howie Roseman making a big move because it never fails. He always has a big move up his sleeve, and when you think that he's done, he's not done, and he's still working the phones, being a mover and a shaker. So what move, if any, will Howie Roseman make? It can be one of the moves that we discussed on today's show as potential possibilities involving some of the rumors around this team and across the NFL, or a move we did not talk about. And if I missed it, maybe we'll include that in a future show.